Hello. All right, y'all. We are going to get into it today really quickly so that we get straight to the point. Today, by the way, thank you for tuning in and joining my channel or my page, wherever you are seeing this at, because I will actually crop this video and put it on different platforms. I do my best to share it throughout the different realms of social platforms. That way my information can get out there to women so they can truly understand the importance of knowing history, knowing women's history, and the importance of knowing the history of the womb and matters of the womb and the heart and healing these body parts, these organs that are so impactful, that are literally our lifeline. So again, my name is Bianca. I am your womb practitioner. I'm also your Haitian postpartum doula and all the many things. Okay, I call myself also a womb practitioner teacher. I love to teach, and this is why I am here. And I want to say welcome in and thank you for joining. Again, we are going to get straight into it. We are talking about the spiritual manifestations of fibroids today. This is so important because Black women are 3 times more likely to have fibroids in their lifetime, higher than the Caucasian woman as well as the Hispanic woman. We are 3 times more likely to have hysterectomies because of womb diseases such as fibroids. A hysterectomy is the removal of the uterus, but a hysterectomy is also, in a more deeper aspect, is the removal of your femininity. And even when you still do the work to, be connected to your femininity without the womb intact in your actual body, there's always this missing piece, and there's always this missing understanding to where did I go wrong, and what could have I done differently to have not had to have this surgery. Okay, and we're gonna break this down, and it's gonna be a nice little chat. Okay, and I'll try to bring in and weave in some of my stories and my experiences so that we can really get deep. Okay, all right. First things first is, ladies, I want us to talk about the intergenerational womb. And I have my notes here always. We're going to talk about, really briefly, the intergenerational womb. Okay, so it's really important to understand that you are connected to your ancestors and your maternal ancestors or your matriarchal ancestors. Okay, your mother, of course, if she's still here or not, you are still connected to her. If you are also still connected to your grandmother and your great-great-grandmother. Okay, but oopsies, this is not it. There we go. So what I wanna share right off the back is that your grandmother's in your grandmother's womb, while your grandmother was pregnant with your mother, you were being formed in your mother's womb. While your grandmother was pregnant, the fetus of your mother actually held eggs in her ovaries. She was not even born yet. Your mother was not born yet. Can you imagine that? A big bellied woman having a baby in her womb. And then the baby in her womb, right, the fetus in her womb, very, very tiny, has an ovary. The ovary has developed by now, and in that ovary, the eggs of you were formed. Okay, so this is very important to understand because it really truly means that you are connected to your ancestral traumas, and you are also connected to your ancestral resources that goes way back. So there are things that you can go back intuitively or through meditation practices and through healing your womb. You can go back and retrieve from your great 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 ancestors. If there is medicine for you, if there's healing from you, healing for you, some form of healing, some things that you're going through, you got to call on the spirits. You got to call on your ancient spirits and ask them for the information and the knowledge. You have to simmer down that mind of yours. You have to light a candle and activate your ancestral lineage, your matriarchal lineage. You got to talk to them. You got to call upon them. You got to cry. Tears helps you call upon your ancestors when you are in need of help, when you are just confused and distraught. All right, so we can talk to our ancestors, our grandmothers, our great great grandmothers. If our mothers are gone, we can speak to them and call upon their spirit for assistance, for the things that they did have, the tools that they did have when they were existing. It's more amplified. You can get the knowledge easier, or the information or the energy charged up easier to use in your life to benefit you. Okay, but then that also means that the traumas that they have endured or they endured during their lifetime is still within you because you are connected to them via the bloodline. Okay, so this is important. The intergenerational womb is very significant when it comes to, knowing your history so that you can erase the mystery, so that you're not confused on why you have fibroids, so that you're not confused on where it's developed from. You think you're healthy, right? Or you believe that you've been eating in the right ways, but yet you still have developed fibroids. Sometimes it's not of this lifetime. It is of a past lifetime. And you may be the chosen one to heal it. Okay? Because otherwise you pass it down to your future seed, your future daughters. All right, so the intergenerational womb, understanding and knowing how impactful the I call it the womb imprints are within you. Within your womb, there are imprints, there are notes, there are secrets, there is literally concepts left within your womb. Imprints. Okay, information. The womb is full of information. Okay, and when I started diving deep into my womb, that is when I was filled with the information of my Haitian heritage and the empowered energy of a Haitian woman. Right? That's when I awakened the Haitian spirits within my bloodline. They were healers. Clearly, they were healers. They were touchers. They were womb touchers. They were womb. They put their hands on the womb. Like those were my kind of ancestors. They would lay their hands on the womb. They would use l'huile masqueti to touch the womb and massage the womb. My great 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 ancestors, of course this was lost by the time it got to my grandmother and my mother, because those women in my bloodline, they were abused. Okay, these were different kinds of women. This was the fall of women. This was like the lowest level, right? Low vibrational women, because they forgot their power, because their power was taken away from them. But my great 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 ancestors were the healers of the wombs. They were midwives, okay, and they were doulas. And they were, I'm sorry, I'm like looking at the time to see if it, and they were protectors of the womb, okay, and that's why I've reincarnated to be this as well, okay. This was called, upon me way before I came here. All right, way before I was born. All right, so basically, your grandmother, as well as your mother, as well as your grandmother, were connected in a primordial sense. Okay, before it, the primordial meaning before actual. It's almost like in an ethereal way, right? In a celestial way, before you incarnated into a like full a full body, right? You were connected. Your souls were connected. Your souls and your spirits were connected. Okay, so it's just a powerful reminder of our lives when our lives seem difficult and we are looking for somewhere to find comfort. Then it's key to understand the connections of the womb to our matriarchal lineage. Okay. All right. So again, the choices and the experiences and the resources and the traumas of those that have come before us, they are within us. Okay, we can experience those things as well. We have access to them, or they exist so that we can destroy some of the things that no longer serve us, of course, right? That is hurting us. But when it comes to the resources, we have that too within us. We have that within our bloodline too, within our blood, within our cellular remembrance. So it's really important that we know and understand the intergenerational womb. Okay? Now, we're going to get into the topic of fibroids because, again, like I said earlier, fibroids is Black women, African American women are 3 times more likely to get fibroids, okay? And then also 3 times more likely to get a hysterectomy because of a fibroid or because of womb diseases. And a hysterectomy is the removal of the uterus, full removal of your reproductive organ, of the uterus, of your life force energy, your lifeline. And yes, you are still alive if you still, if you've had this situation happen to you. But that what I'm here to share is that you may have not had to experience this level of pain if you knew about your history. Okay. So, fibroid. First and foremost, what I want to talk about is the root word and etymology of the word fibroid, right? Fibroid is, I would say fiber, right? So the word fiber or fibre, it derives from Latin, and so probably wasn't pronounced how I'm saying it, but that first part of the word has to do with the word called woolly, right? Woolly or thread-like, okay, or string-like. String, meaning string-like. String-like, okay? So woolly, thread-like, or string-like. Also, it means, or it's related to the splitting, to split, right? Thread-like, woolly-like, little hairs-like, splitting, okay? And the oid stands for resemblance, okay? Again, so when you hear me say like, so it has the resemblance of these concepts or these characteristics. Okay, so fibrous tissue is a fibroid, fibrous tissue. Okay, and the fibrous tissue grows in the uterus. It's a benign, non-cancerous tumor as well. Okay, so it's funny to me because when I understood that it was like thread-like and little string-likes, and I've seen fibroids before, and they are live entities. Okay, fibroids are live entities. When you really get a microscope and see them and study them, they have like teeth. Okay, so it's very, very like intense and scary, right? In a sense, if you're really like putting a close eye on these benign cancerous formations. But what I want to share, turn my stuff off. But what I want to share with you is the concept of it being split, the splitting of, and that concept drew me in to compare it to the splitting of you, right? Spiritually, and that it's a disconnection of the splitting of you to your essence. And what is your essence? Your femininity, right? Your true nature. Your true nature at its highest level, okay? At a high level. Not in the animalistic state, not in the low vibrational way, but the highest level of a woman in her femininity is an empowered woman, is a woman that's creative and is constantly creating, and is constantly resting, and is constantly at ease, and is constantly growing and flourishing and nurturing. All right, but it is this, but the the fibroid is string-like, woolly-like to split, like, right? The concept of a thread-like to split. And that to me is impactful because it connects to the splitting of your true self, your inner self. Okay, so then that's why we're going to get into it though. We are going to get into it. So, but I do want to state that now the fibroid is there. There's a study actually over the town. There is a study in an article. It's called The New Hypothesis About the Origin of Uterine Fibroids. A new hypothesis about the origin of uterine fibroids. There's an article, and the article states how fibroid formation is now being studied to resemble a disorder, as a disorder of healing, as opposed to a tumor, a disorder of a tumor, something that is, because in the field of medicine, a tumor is related to the ending, or very detrimental and very negative. It has a very negative connotation. But now they're saying, now it's being studied to resemble a disorder of healing, which is good. This is good news. That just means also in medicine wise, they're looking for ways to create medicine to help women get rid of scientific medicine, to help women get rid of their benign tumors. I'm here to share with you that there are ways to understand before a tumor even manifests, or if you have one and you've had it before and you've gotten rid of it, how to keep it away in a spiritual light. Okay? I want you to understand where also these things derive from so that you can keep it away. Okay? Because again, medicine works to cure, or not cure, to get rid of it, right? Temporarily at times. I'm here to share with you, like, okay, how are we going to just end this war? The war of our feminine that is going on within us. So see when this is gonna end. Give me 1 second, y'all. Okay, so we are gonna start. Where's my little notes? Okay. Okay. All right, ladies, let's go. All right. So we're talking about fibroids and the importance of fibroids and the spiritual manifestations of fibroids. Fibroids is it's when you really learn about it, it's something else. It's something else, y'all, because really it's the rejection. Okay, when you think of fibroids, you have to connect it to the concept of being rejected and the concept of you rejecting yourself. All right, and when it comes to fibroids and the spiritual aspect and the spiritual manifestations of it, you are rejecting yourself. You are rejecting, and this is chronic rejection, right? This is over and over self-abandonment. Okay, this is the fact that you've never learned how to love on yourself and how to have boundaries. All right, so this is the rejection of your femininity. This is the rejection of your sexuality. Okay, and this doesn't mean, oh, like I'm, this is, I will go deep in it. I will go deeper. This is the rejection of your womanhood. This is also the rejection of motherhood. Okay, so you might ask, well, I have children, I'm a mother, and so why do I have fibroids? Why did I develop fibroids? But this doesn't mean that you have accepted that you are, it doesn't mean that you've accepted the transition of being a mother. It doesn't mean that you accepted the transition while you were carrying. Okay, so while you were pregnant, did you accept the transformation? Did you allow yourself to accept that you were never going to be the same person anymore? Okay, did you accept the fact that, are you accepting the fact day to day that you are now a mother and that a piece of you is gone? Are you honoring this new woman and paying homage to the old you that brought you here? Okay, so you have to think about these things. And when it comes to sexuality, it's like, it doesn't matter, like, you've had sex, yes, but it doesn't mean that you were comfortable with yourself and your body and in your sexuality, in fully embodied woman. You have to ask yourself these questions. You have to really dig deep, like, am I really comfortable with my sexuality? Am I really comfortable in the mirror naked? Am I really comfortable with grabbing a mirror and looking at my womb and looking at my uterus and looking at my cervix and looking at my vagina and my vaginal lips, right? And my labia? Like, are you really comfortable with looking, putting that mirror there, right? Getting if you have to, getting a little bit rid of some hair and really sitting down with your womb space and getting that mirror and looking at her and saying affirmations. Are you comfortable with doing something like that? Okay, because that's deep when it comes to that is a part of sexuality. That is a part of sensuality. Okay, so fibroids is a disconnect and the rejection of your senses, of your sensuality, of your joy, of your pleasure. It doesn't have to be self-pleasure in a sense where you are actually touching on yourself and caressing yourself, which is needed, which is very feminine. It is very feminine for you to put on lotion and cream and go slow after a shower. It is very feminine to, take care of yourself from head to toe and not rush. So these are the things that you're going to have to really look at yourself and do self-analysis, right? Are you comfortable with yourself? Let's see. Okay. So this over here. Now, okay, so what do I want to say? Oh, yeah, I spoke about that earlier. We're just making sure we get all the notes down, making sure we talk about all the things. Since we talked about the ancestral trauma, we talked about, like, you know, the good and the bad, like the things that you can get from your ancestors, your great-great-grandmothers, your grandmother, your mother, the information that was sent to your womb so that you can uplift yourself, right? The information is there, and then also so that you don't relive these certain traumas that our ancestors did, okay? So now we are here. We are here with the benign tumor and the benign cyst in the womb, right? Fibroids is a benign cancer, non-cancerous cyst, or, you know, a mutation, right? They come in these little balls. They actually have teeth, right? And when you really look at them with a microscope, and they are really like entities, okay? So again, these entities are splits within your consciousness, right? That almost like suck the life out of you. They're like parasitical in a sense, because they're trying to split you into so many pieces. And when I think about this concept, and I talk about, or when I think about this concept, I'm going to actually name something that women that have fibroids are chronically functioning in, or, you know, they're high functioning in these things, but that are not good for them. So these people manifest people who need to be cared for. Ooh, this is a big one. This is a big one because my mother had fibroids. My mother had fibroids when I didn't know really much about it. I was a young woman, and I was so, honestly, I would say so ignorant to the disease and the level of the disease and the level of the discomfort of the disease. But she did bleed a lot, heavy bleeding at one point. And this was not too long after she had supposedly children. She said she had really bad periods, but she had some heavy bleeding while we were young kids, maybe like 10, right? Maybe like 9, maybe 8. I just remember driving in the car at one point. My mom was, you know, she was dealing with heavy bleeding, okay, and she was bleeding throughout her clothing while she was either, you know, bringing us home or taking us somewhere to shop for some new clothes, because you know how it is. So anyway, it's like crazy what women go through, you know. And really, when I think about it, I'm thinking about all the emotions and all of the emotional abuse that she faced, that she allowed herself to face when it came to my father and her relationship with my father. And maybe the relationship with men, because again, when it goes back to it's connected to the mother and the father. It's really big connected to the mother and the mother wounds. Okay, so fibroids is connected to mother wounds. Okay, so you have a woman with fibroids has really deep-rooted shame as it pertains to the relationship she has had with her mother. Okay, she is shameful that, let me see how many minutes she is shameful that she never had a true connection with her mother. She is shameful that she's shameful of the neglect, right? The lack of love that she had with her mother. And she's shameful just about her history with her mother. Maybe some things has happened while she was a teenager, and then her mother. Okay, so for example, let me give you a background story on what I'm talking about. Let's So, for example, my mother had a relationship that had a faulty, weird relationship with her mother. All right, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about fibroids and the relationship that my mother, for example, had with her mother. And then now, when I think about it, when I think about my relationship that I had with my mom, then it makes perfect sense, right? It makes perfect sense why I always felt disconnected to her emotionally, but I had the connection with her physically. Okay, she was a Taurus woman, so she took care of us very well, top tier, right, on the physical. But when it comes to more spiritual, more like emotional support, that was non-existent. It's okay now. I have to deal with that now. That's why I'm here. And I have children. And this is, what I have to repair through my children. With myself, of course, first, and then with them. But the relationship that my mother had with her mother was, my mom said that she always felt like her, in a sense, because I interviewed my mom before she passed. I had some sort of something, thank God. And when I spoke to her, she said, I feel like, my mother was never around. My mother was always working. My mother was always working. And it's crazy because now I see the sadness in my mom's, like after my mom died, and after that, those situations, I got to see the humanness of my mother, and I humanized her. Finally, that's all she probably wanted, was to be human, and not pedestalized. But yet, she actually did pedestalize herself throughout her life, and so that's how I saw her, right? But she felt as though she was never really connected to her mother because her mother was always working. Haitian woman, barely making it. Haitian market, selling, Haitian fruits and foods, vegetables, legumes, and, doing the best that she could. My grandmother, which is my mother's mother, she was an abused, battered woman. She was married to an alcoholic man. So my grandfather was an alcoholic. This is something I found out late when my mother was already diagnosed with breast cancer. Okay, so this is deep connections when it comes to your history, your bloodline, and all the many things that your mother has dealt with and your grandmother has dealt with, and the diseases that they died from connects to the womb. Okay, because women are not supposed to be stressed. We don't do well with high cortisol levels and high stress levels, and it imbalances our hormones and it impacts our health. Okay, so my grandmother, she died of a heart attack. But a heart attack is related to of course, excuse me, the heart. And the heart is interconnected with the womb. So there's a disconnect here, right? There's brokenness, there's splits within your consciousness when it comes to the heart. So dying of a heart attack, and then my mom died of breast cancer. Again, the breast is connected to the heart. The breast is here, the heart is here. The heart, again, is connected to the womb space. So when we go back to it, it's like you always got to go back to the womb, right? Heal your womb and your heart will begin to soften. Your heart will begin to release. You won't be afraid to show and expose your emotions. You won't be afraid to hold in. You'll no longer feel like you have to hold in your emotions and hide that part of you. All right? So deep-rooted shame with the relationship with your mother is a big factor of a woman with fibroids. A woman with fibroids that says, oh, I'm close to my mother though. Well, you don't know what your mom had to endure. You know a little bit of her story, but maybe she hasn't told you everything. if you haven't gotten that pen out yet and a notepad to interview her with wise questions about how she felt when she carried each child in her womb. Did she feel loved with each child in her womb? Was she loved on? Was she cared for and nurtured? Who took her to her doctor's appointments? Okay, who was there for her postpartum? Did she get a Haitian postpartum bath? Did she ever do anything post-birth for each of her kids, her 9 kids, her 5 kids, her 4 kids? What's her story? Was she raped as a child? Was she sexually molested as a child? Did she live with toxic family members as a child? Where was she living? Was there war in her lifetime when she was a child? Was she leaving and fleeing a country of war and terror when she was a child, or when she was a woman, or when she was carrying? What are the traumatic imprints within her womb? Like, so we really got to get deep and not just claim that we're close to our mothers when we're not. We don't know their histories, and we dehumanize them, or we it's like they're not human. It's we pedestalize our parents, our mothers. So we're here to like fix that. That's a part of womb healing. Being overly motherly to people, to everyone but yourself, is a betrayal and the rejection of yourself. You don't love yourself. You're ignoring yourself. But to pretend like you love yourself and to gain validation from others so that you can feel a sense of love, you pour into them. You cook for them. You sweat for them. You cook and clean for them. You know, you do all the things for others, but when it comes down to you, in the moment of silence, you're quiet, right? But you're not listening to yourself. You're ignoring yourself. You use things to ignore yourself. You use the TV, right? You turn on the TV to ignore yourself. You turn on the radio. You get on the phone. You're on the phone all day, yapping your mouth. You need to think. You need to cry. You need to release. All right, so again, this is what you call the misuse of your energy. Okay, this is all about a woman should preserve herself. Women should preserve their energy. Women should preserve their life force energy. Okay, you shouldn't just be spreading your energy amongst anybody. You should protect it. All right, only certain people deserve your energy. Okay, so to add on to that, everyone becomes like a project to you. And then I have a story time. Everyone becomes like a project to you and like a child to you. You become a mother to everyone. Okay, and everyone is being nursed by you. Okay, but have you nursed yourself? Are you nourished? Have you drank from your own milk, per se? Like, have you drunk from your own well? Are you nourished? Are you full? You have to fill yourself up before you go helping others. So when I think about this, I'm thinking about my mom, because she was definitely like that. She was a giver, right? And she claimed that, you gotta help people, and I'm just like, but not in these circumstances. I was just always observing. I'm telling you, I was definitely born to be a healer. Because I didn't want to say I put my mom in her place, but I always told her about herself. Granted, I was not perfect. I was not a perfect daughter. I stressed her out, when I was young. But I saw that the things that she was doing, like, it just wasn't adding up. Okay, so the nature of my mom was to give and give and give and not have anything left for herself. All right, so it's just, again, I watched my mother, you know, attract certain people in her life that were very, like, almost they couldn't do anything for themselves, or they played the role of, like, I'm helpless, I'm a helpless woman, and I'm sick. And my mother gravitated to these kinds of people. She was a nurse's aide. She was a nurse's aide, and she dealt with people that were sickly all her life since she got to America. And she got here when she was 30. She passed away at the age of 62. So for 30 plus years, she's dealing with sickly natured people and women. Because when she gravitated to friends, her friends always had issues and needed caring for and needed nurturing. And my mom was very nurturing. She had lots of energy to do this. Okay, she had lots of loving, nurturing energy, but it was at her detriment. Okay, because it didn't serve her to give and give and give, because people were just pulling. People are like parasites. The more you give them with no boundaries, with no lack of boundaries, they're coming to take. Okay, so recognizing that your energy is powerful, and your energy can restore yourself if you use it on yourself first, and then preserving everything for you first and nurturing yourself, filling yourself up first, and then giving your extras, your surplus, to people that you love and that are reciprocal, so that you're not being drained. This is pivotal, very, very, very significant when it comes to fibroids. Not allowing yourself to be drained, not allowing parasites to come and take and steal from you your precious, the most precious thing from you, which is your life force energy. Okay, my mother had a friend from the church. I remember she got herself a little friend from the church. She also had another person, but I'm not gonna go deep into that. That stayed with us. That was a step, related more so stepwise, in a sense where she was married to a brother, and that went left too later on. It's crazy, but the main one was for the was the woman that she met at the church, and that became like a parasite that saw the beauty in my mother's nurturing self, and she just took and took and took. My mom would let her borrow the car. She got the car crashed, or like got a like a boo-boo with the car. My mom allowed her to live downstairs, or was no stay with us, and then she brought all her kids to stay with us, and her kids were not really respectful to our space and things of that nature. And it got ugly. Eventually they fell out, because when I when I called my mama that when I called my mother out and told her, not called her out, but when I spoke to the woman about how our kids are not flushing the toilet, and these are like 16-year-old kids, and not flushing the toilet when they're using the bathroom and all the things, she got embarrassed and she left the next day. Okay, and my mom came to me and was like, "What'd you do? What'd you say to my friend?" And my mother was asking, what did I say to her friend, and that I caused this whatever imaginary. In her mind, it was like an illusion that there was no disconnect between the relationship, when really clearly it was. It was meant to be that that woman had to get out of the home. Everyone saw it. It was not only me, but again, I didn't need confirmation from anyone else. I saw my mother being used consistently. Okay, and not everybody in her life treated her like that. But she did gravitate towards people that needed her in a motherly sense, as opposed to nourishing each other, relationships that were fulfilling and nurturing. So we got to pay attention to that as women. Are our relationships nurturing? Are they reciprocal? Otherwise, if they're draining and parasitical, then things like fibroids can manifest. So father wounds, like I said as well. My mother had a alcoholic father. Never knew that. Never knew that. But I put two and two together that he was abusing my grandmother from the stories that she told me. And before she passed away, I got to ask her some questions, and I recognized that he was an abuser. He was an abuser because he was kicked out the house, but would find his way back into the house. And the way that she explained that he would go find his way back in the house, and the tools that he used, and I'm like, oh, that's an abusive man, right? I could put two and two together. She didn't know how to explain and express this when she was telling me the story, and she didn't want to paint him as a bad guy either, which was a part of something that, again, for women, it's the patriarchy. It's the patriarchy and the social programming of being protectors of men, protectors of dangerous men, protectors of diabolical men, right? I don't know how else to say it, but it was this being protectors of the patriarchy. You know, not saying to me and telling me that he was abusive, but yet you're telling me the story about what he did and how he would get drunk and how he had multiple baby mothers, and you know, and I believe my grandmother had maybe like six children, you know, and when you really do your dig deeping about the history of women and being married and having all these children and then being poor, it's almost like, okay, you got to put two and two together. You got to understand that women were being raped, right? But they wouldn't say that because you're married, right? So under the authority of religion, you know, a woman is not being disrespected and mishandled and raped or sexually assaulted, and yet, you know, she's popping out all these babies. Of course, accountability comes in, but women did not have all this power that we have within, that we have just, you know, gathered and now we finally have within like the last past 60 years. All right, so our grandmothers and great-great-grandmothers had to be married because that was their only means of survival. And yet they were married to abusers and molesters and sexual assaulters, if that's a word. Okay, they were married to bad men. So it goes way deep. The womb traumas that we carry. It's the womb traumas that our ancestors carried. And whether they were married or not, especially if they had multiple children or if they tried to have children and they couldn't have children, there's reasons to that. You have to get deep. I'm not saying what happened to my great-great-grandmothers and grandmothers and mother happened to yours, but there's some trauma there, right? There's hidden traumas that they're not talking about. They don't want to share about it. They might not know all about it, but we must know. We must get to knowing right now. So women with fibroids have the biggest hearts and they lack boundaries. I spoke about that. All right. They are self-sacrificial. Okay, the spiritual, one of the spiritual manifestations, y'all hear me, of fibroids is that you are self-sacrificial. Sacrificing yourself for everybody. Left with nothing, zero. Guilt, shame, and not processing emotions of past hurts. This is a big one. This is a big one because I saw that. I saw that in me. I never had fibroids, but I saw that like my mom's traumas were passing on to me because I never knew how to process grief or sadness, childhood trauma. You know, I had pretty much a great childhood in a sense, but I didn't have any emotional connections with my parents. Okay, and this caused me to look outwardly. This caused me to look for people so that I can find this love that I was missing. that I never got when I was a young child. So this so this part of me that was missing had me yearning for it in others, mainly men, because I was not taught about men. Okay, whatever my mom dealt with and whatever my grandmother dealt with, they didn't talk to each other about it. They weren't even conscious about it. They weren't conscious of being slaves, right? In a sense, it's like slaves to others and slaves to fulfilling others' needs, right? See, slavery ended, but it never ended, because then we became slaves to anybody, right? We became slaves to just because of the lack of love. It's like, okay, I'll become a slave for you so that I could get something, get some sort of love. And this is like what reaped through our bloodline, the lack of love. So where I'm going with this is that I was searching for that love and that nurturing, that caring. I was searching for me, because I am loving, and women are naturally like more nurturing, right? But again, I was very like, I'm a bubbly person, like real chill, bubbly, bright, energy, and I was searching for that, right? And I would look for it in men. So I was heartbroken several times, choosing the wrong men, and I almost started to. It's because now, when you think about it, you gotta look at your grandmother's situation, you gotta look at your mother's situation. My mother was not physically abused, but she was emotionally abused. But I was gravitating in my, like, when I was like 19, years ago, years ago, when I was like 19, 20, I was gravitating towards abusive men, right? And I'm like, in my head, like, I'm always wondering, I'm like, well, how I end up with this, when I would break up with them, I would be like, how am I ending up with this in these situations? With these toxic men. And it was because of what was within my womb imprints. Okay, it was that my grandmother was abused by a toxic man. It was that my mother was emotionally then abused, although she did a little bit better in choosing, right? And yet, what's funny? There was toxicity within that relationship as well, like yelling, right? Aggressively yelling at each other. And I ain't with that. I'm not going to raise my voice. That's not the kind of relationship that I desire. So you are always going to be better than your ancestors, than your mother. You're supposed to be. You're supposed to recognize the patterns. But the more you ask them, the more you get this information, y'all, this is important, the more you will know. I don't know how else to tell you how you want to know. So fibroids is connected to stifled creativity as well. You're not creating anything. You're just, and then now in the day of, like, in this day and age of like social media, you're on the phone all the time. You're on the phone all the time, wasting your life away, watching others be amazing. You have a purpose. You came here for something. You came here to share something and give something or become something. Even if you're not selling something, you have to become, your purpose is to become something. Okay, and not be distracted by your 9-to-5, your job. Maybe you're here to become free and that's it. But what were some of the things what were some of the things you did as a child that made you feel so free? Because if it was coloring, why haven't you picked up a coloring book? Why haven't you ordered a pack of crayons, a pack of markers for yourself? Why don't you sketch anymore? Why don't you paint anymore? You don't have to do something so specific where you're like selling something or becoming an entrepreneur. No, this is not about that. This is about you tapping into your inner child. So we're going to end this. So So again, you did not, I wrote down in my notes, you did not idolize your mother. All right. So you become extremely opposite of your mother. And I mean, I've been talking about the mother and also my experience with my mother, but what that means is that, you know, you resented your mother in a sense. You resented what she was, you saw what she was, and so you were like, oh no, I don't want to be that. And I feel like that probably was a little bit of my experience, not wanting to be like her, not wanting to be such a giver, and then, you know, in a sense being selfish. Like I really felt like I grew up being more selfish. And then I was attacked for being this way. And I love to give. I'm a giver naturally. I wasn't always selfish. I had to learn to be somewhat that while I was still giving. That was actually my saving grace. This is how I got myself in sticky situations and abusive situations that would have went left, like in certain relationships, especially with men. So it being selfish is a boundary. Being self-preserving is a boundary, and it can save your life. Okay, so there was so many instances in life where I became selfish. I would lose myself and then I would become selfish. I would lose myself and I would become selfish. And I was because of that, I was doing the heartbreaking. Although, you know, it seemed as though they were breaking my heart while I was in relationships with men. It really was like I had to do the heartbreaking. Most of the times women got to do it anyway. That's how empowered we are. You know, we are actually supposed to be in charge of ourselves, our wombs, our lives, our energy, protectors of our energy. The woman is the true protector, the true protector. All right. So, you know, we put a lot of focus on others protecting us, but we can protect ourselves by knowing our history. It's important. That's one of the most impactful things you can do, is know your history. Is to be intelligent across the board. It's not to just be educationally intelligent, but to understand to understand being intelligent as it pertains to your family dynamics and history and your womb history as a woman. Yes, that is important, y'all. So being a product of a misogynistic household, and I spoke of this a little bit earlier, how my mom was programmed to clearly protect her father. And in that, she became a wife and protected my father. She protected his image and her image. She never divorced him, even till her last breath. Right? And so this leaves remnants for me, right, to deal with, and on earth side, but also within my womb imprints, I had to deal with these conditionings as well. You know, so that's why my self-love journey is not superficial. My self-love journey is something that has to do with womb health and ancestral healing. Check the time. So, this is good. This is one of the last things I want to talk about. You desire a new life so badly and so desperately. Okay? But the thing is, you cannot run away from accountability in your problems as a woman. You could desire the new life, right? And a new okay. Where did I leave off? Okay, so we were talking about desiring a new life so badly and so desperately. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. You desire a new life so badly and desperately. Okay, and this is a spiritual manifestation of a fibroid, of fibroids. Okay, you desire change, but you're not changing yourself. Okay, you desire a new life, a new situation, but you're not, you lack accountability, you lack self-accountability. How can you help yourself? How can you move to the next level if you are not accountable for some of the things that you've allowed in your life? You've allowed the disrespect, you've allowed the pain, constant chronic pain and disrespect, and you've allowed the self-hate to penetrate your mind. And now you're walking around as a self-hating woman and a bitter woman, right? So you have to be accountable. I'm looking at my candle flame. It's like moving, active. Yeah, so I'm looking at my candle over there, y'all. It's like active. And I'm like, yeah. So that's one of the spiritual manifestations of, or why your the fibroid can show up in your life, is because you're stuck in a stagnant cycle. You're stuck in a loop and you're not learning and you're not changing. And so that fibroid, just like a cyst, right, solidifies these little fibroids, and they actually can grow really big. And they are like little entities. They grow, excuse me, they grow within your body, within your womb, your uterus space, excuse me, because of stagnant energy, right? Without stagnant energy, without blockages within your within your beingness on a spiritual level, then they cannot manifest with clear pathways to flow, to go through life, right? Without blockages, then fibroids cannot exist. With all these blockages, though, yes, this is how they come to tell you that you need healing, to tell you that they're here to save you and protect you. Like the article said. Okay, like the article said that I shared with y'all earlier, that fibroids is now being studied as something that can be healed. Okay, as opposed to it being a tumor, like how it was studied before. So and really it was always like that, right? It's always something that can be healed. But we just have to know the spiritual implications of this disease. Okay, we have to understand the deep invisible layer and the invisible lining of this disease, of womb diseases. So what I want to talk about quickly is the healing modalities of fibroids. On a physical level, you need nourishing herbs. You're going to need drying herbs. Okay, because fibroids is like a wet. It's like a wet constitution. It holds a wet constitution. Okay, and you need drying herbs. Okay, to dry it up, right? To shrivel it up. And one of the ways that I always talk about, one of the ways to get rid of fibroids is changing your diet, for one. For one, right? Because studies have shown that fibroids is something that develops because of emotional and hormonal imbalances. Okay, so definitely the things that we're putting in our gut, right, is, again, the gut sits right above the womb. Okay, your digestive organ sits right above the womb. And then when it's compacted with trash, right, when it's compacted with trash, then it sits on the womb and it presses upon the womb, right? And then this creates blockages that can happen within the womb, within the uterus, within the womb space, because the womb is no longer free. Okay, women are supposed to be free. We're not supposed to be locked up and feel like we are caged up. And remember that last thing that I spoke about. If you desire a new life so badly and desperately, but you're not going after it, you're caging yourself up. It's either that or you are caged up. And really, it's all an illusion. It's all in the mind, right? Why do you feel so caged up? Why do you feel like you are stuck, like you cannot leave the situation? Even if you have children and you are married and you're in an abusive situation, you are not stuck. It's the illusion of stuck, right? The only thing that's keeping you stuck is your lack of accountability. Your lack of seeing yourself and seeing your nature and seeing your inner child wounds. You don't want to do the work. So when it comes to the womb, when it comes to healing the womb, when it comes to healing and releasing a fibroid, yoni steaming, the practice of yoni steaming, the practice of womb steaming is impactful. You would have to do it. You would need a regimen, of course. But when it comes to herbs and water is healing to the womb. If you want to free up the womb, then the womb and free up the womb of stagnant energy, then the womb needs water, because water is flow. Water is currency, right? If you want currency within your life, new currents to come through within your life to cleanse out your womb space, then you have to bring in the nourishing waters and the nourishing herbs, and you have to sit on that steam. Okay, so again, we spoke about the diet needing to change, and we spoke about the womb steaming and water. And we need to talk about also, I want to talk about processing emotions, because emotions is just energy, emotion, right? This is emotion right here. This is you angry. That anger needs to flow, right? Like this. However, but it needs to come out. It needs to move. Yes, babe, good night. If this is a ball of anger right here, and this ball of anger gets stuck right here in your body, what do you need to do? You have to allow it to move. This is anger, right? You need to find a source and a way for this anger to be released. You need to free it, right? Water, yes, that works really well, but breathing actually helps. With me, up until I started breathing and doing breathing practices, that changed the trajectory of my healing for sure. So you need to ask yourself also, how are you mothering yourself? How am I mothering me? Ask yourself that. All right, so we need to come up with some practices to mother ourselves. If you have children and you treat them like royalty, you need to treat yourself like royalty. Okay? And then practicing emotional boundaries. Ooh, this is a big one. This is a big one for women, because they say that they say the way that we behave as women is, it's almost like it gets stuck. There's studies that say that it gets stuck at a certain age. All right, so we need to be practicing our emotional boundaries. At I think the age is 14. Okay, so a lot of women are walking around and they are not, they have not, their minds have not expanded. All right, so my last point was, oh yeah, I was talking about emotional boundaries. Okay, so basically I'm trying to give you like a live example, right? But really what it's about is mastering your emotions. Okay, emotional boundaries meaning you you don't just blow up when you are angry or enraged in a sense where you're destroying relationships or regretting after you've exploded. Kind of think about it like a child, how children react when they're angry. You know, they spit on you, they bite you, they might say something real foul, um, and or they're just enraged. They're just enraged and they unravel, right? And then 5 to 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, it's almost like it didn't happen. And that kind of behavior is detrimental to our relationships. And, like whether it is, extreme jealousy or or anxious attachment styles, right? And, feeling like you need to be up under someone all the time or know their every move. And it's a form of control, right? And so you have to master yourself as a woman. You have to master your emotions. It's one of the most amazing, it's one of the most impactful things that you can do, actually, because this is what creates healthy relationships, and this is what allows you to set healthy boundaries for yourself, as well as for yourself towards others. Mastering your detachment style. Okay, mastering the art, the art of remaining detached and not being so, because it's a form of control when you are so attached to the things that people do, to the outcomes of life, to the outcomes of what you thought it would be. It's a form of control, and it is not a way to heal. It's not a way to heal, and it's not conducive to growth. It's not conducive to elevation. Okay, and it's not conducive to womb healing. If you want to heal your womb and yet you still don't know how to behave when it comes to your emotions, and you're still unraveling with extremes amounts of jealousy and or anger, right, or being combative, then you're not really doing the work. Okay, you have to master the art of detachment when it comes to life, because life will happen. Life will happen to you if you accept it in that sense. Life can also happen for you, and that is the art of detachment, because anything that is happening to you is happening to you for a reason and because of the choices you've made. So then that empowers you to say, if I made these choices and this is the results of these choices, what are the results of these choices, right? Not these choices, these lower level thinking choices. What are the levels of what is my return of these choices now that I know better? Okay? And that's why I talk about that. This is why I talk about knowing your history, because history erases the mystery. And that is all, y'all. Those are the healing modalities of the process of starting to, think about healing the fibroids. Okay? Fibroids is again, all womb diseases are spiritual diseases and have spiritual manifestations. They hold spiritual manifestations before they hold the physical presence. So what you want to do is you want to know. You want to dive deep. You want to get the information, right? Information like this. And then after you get information like this, you have to recognize, okay, this happened, this has happened, this has happened to my mother, this happened to my grandmother. Where am I at in this place? Where am I at right now? In all of this, in the midst of all this information. Where is my heart? How am I feeling? Every day, day to day. What's my day to day looking like? And then you go like, okay, how are my hormones? Like, is it my hormones? Is it, how am I eating? Am I eating nourishing foods at all? Have I been skipping out on that? Like, you have to be conscious. Okay, because it's all intertwined, it's all connected. If you have fibroids, if you're dealing with this, if it's ancestral or if it's been in your bloodline or if it's been in your history of wombs, it's in your womb history, then you need to definitely look into diet, or you need to look into not diet, but lifestyle eating, lifestyles, changing lifestyle habits. Okay, and that's important, right? That's important. And then lastly, what I want to talk about is if you love this video, by the way, y'all, let me know if you want to get deep into what kind of herbs. Okay, this video cannot be that long. That's a whole separate, because we don't want to talk about herbs first. We want to talk about the spiritual essence and the functioning and the spiritual, reasonings behind this disease in the first place. We never want to go to herbs first. That is not how we heal. If anything, we heal through emotions first. Energy and motion. Because if our energy continues to be the same, even after the removal of a fibroid, the fibroid can come back and it could return, or something else can return. Right? So it's really about the information, the knowledge, and then the knowledge that you're going to have to acquire, and then say, okay, what can I do differently? Take accountability. It's about accountability. It's always about accountability. Right? Our parents, our mothers, our grandmothers, they weren't able to be accountable. They didn't have this information. You do now. They didn't know that it was something passed down through the bloodline. All that talk, right? They were truly in a sense like slaves. This is our first chance of like freedom. We are the ancestral results of slavery, but we are free now, truly. But you gotta free yourself. I smell fire. Could be the candle downstairs. Okay, y'all. So again, ask yourself how you are mothering yourself daily. Right? What are some nourishing practices that you can do for yourself daily? For me, I like candles all the time. 7-day candles. I go to the Botanica and in my local area, and I get me some 7-day candles in different colors that resonate with what I would like to call into my life. Candle always lit. Flowers I buy weekly, pink or red, because those colors are representative of love. You can do yellow if you want to bring more joy into your life, so go with the flow, what you like. I always want to bring in love, the energy and the essence of love into my life. So red and pink are the colors, are the most high vibrational colors. But roses in general, roses is the flower of choice. I get myself roses. I get myself roses weekly. Okay. And this is a promise that I've made to myself. Realizing and recognizing and taking accountability that I was not loving myself the way that I thought I was. I was doing my womb steams, but I wasn't doing anything else, right? So you got to get into what are the rituals? What's your skincare routine? Okay, how do you apply your lotion on your body? Is it slowly? Is it gently? This is mothering yourself, babying yourself, coloring books, painting again, drawing again, quilting again or knitting again, whatever you liked when you was a young girl. All right, so we're going to end it here. And like, comment, and share, please.